Mark Barlow from Wichita, Kansas says, what's the most haunted place you've ever been in? I've encountered some weird stuff in my life, and I figured since you travel so much, you must have come across some proper ghoulish apparitions. You know what? I actually have stayed in a couple of haunted places, and I think haunted. First of all, I grew up in Scotland, so haunted as like just haunted everywhere. And then it's very haunty. And then I stayed in. I talked about this in a couple of stand-up specials ago, a while ago. I talked about this, but it doesn't matter. I can't remember it, so I'll remember it now. So if I can't remember it, chances are you can't either. I stayed at a place called the Hassayampa Inn in Prescott, Arizona. I was there to see my friend John, who at the time lived in Prescott, Arizona. You pronounce it Prescott like biscuit, apparently, so Prescott, Arizona. Not Prescott. It's a very different type of talking. Prescott, Arizona. There's a place called the Hassayampa Inn. And I can't remember what it was. I turned up late at night, and they only had one room left. I got in there late. They had one room left, and it was room 426. I think that was what it was, 426. There was the only one left, and it was apparently it was the honeymoon suite or something. They said, well, this is the only one we've got left. I'm like, fine, okay. So it wasn't super expensive or anything. It was a lovely hotel, a very nice hotel. But it wasn't super expensive. I said, fine, I'll take it. I'm on my own, but I'll muscle through. That doesn't sound good. I was on my own. I'd be fine. Anyway, there was a big storm coming into Prescott, so I thought, well, getting into a hotel, because I was in my car, I should have got there in a little airplane, but that would have been a whole different thing. Anyway, I was in my car, and I parked my car outside, and I went into the hotel room. I think it was room 426, and my phone ran out of batteries, and my cell phone, which is you're familiar with those. So my cell phone ran out of batteries, and my charger was in the car, and I thought, oh God, I'm not good in that weather. It's horrible. So I thought, you can manage for a night without your phone. So the phone went down, and there was some books lying around. So I picked up a book, and I started to read it, and I fell asleep. And I woke up in the middle of the night, like terrified, like it was like horrible atmosphere. I was like, oh my God. And I turned the light on, and I was like, oh, this feels weird. And I kind of thought, well, I go out to my car, but it was still horrible weather. And I went, but and eventually I kind of was very uncomfortable for a long time. I felt weird and scared, and I thought, I have to get out of this room. So I put on some clothes because I'd fallen asleep in bed, and I went downstairs, and there was a ghostly apparition at the front desk. It wasn't. I went out to the parking lot, and I got my phone, and I took my phone with me, and I plugged it into the charger. So I was sitting in my car because I was too scared to go back to my room. And the phone charge came up, and it said, I thought, well, I wonder if the Hassayampa Hotel is haunted. So I Googled it, and it was very haunted, apparently, according to the internet, which is full of truth and never any hyperbole whatsoever. But even now, this is not hyperbolic. So I Googled the Hassayampa Inn, and it said, very haunted, one of the most haunted hotels in Arizona. And it said on no account stay in room 426. That was I was in. I nearly shit myself right there when I told you. And I was like, oh my God. And apparently what happened back in the day, like back in the 1920s or something, there was a woman there. She was on her honeymoon. So obviously there was a man. Well, not obviously, it could have been a woman or a man. Look, I don't want to get into that. Anyway, there was a man and woman had checked into the hotel. And I don't know what the story is. It's a very vague story, but apparently a man and woman had checked into the hotel. And it was their honeymoon, and he went out to get a packet of cigarettes. You got to remember, it was the 1920s, and you were allowed to smoke. And he went out to get a packet of cigarettes, and he never came back. And then she was in the room for 3 days, and then apparently killed herself. And I know it sounds a little odd, doesn't it? It sounds like, wait, there's a lot of holes in this story, but that's the story that I could find out from the internet was, that something like that, and it was a very haunted room. Now, look, I don't know if there's such a thing as ghosts, but that was a very haunted place, and it felt very haunted, and I was scared. And if you know anything about me, you know I scare easy. I scare easy. I'm not one of those people who said I never get scared. I always get scared. I'm a little scared now. Because some of these houses back there, they could be haunted. This is London. London, very haunted place, I think. It's a funny thing, ghosts, because you think, if you did see a ghost, wouldn't that be reassuring? Because then you'd be like, well, that's clearly there's an afterlife, so, good. Or maybe that wouldn't be reassuring because you think, well, I better behave myself or I better tidy up my... Oh. Look, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opinions about this. All I'm saying is, when I stayed at the Hasayampa Inn, I think it was room 426. Don't quote me on that. It was definitely the Hasayampa Inn, though, because I remember Hasayampa is I think it's Yavapai Indians. And I think that was a word that they had. It was a Yavapai Indian word, or Yavapai Native American, I should say. That lived there, and they, I think Hasayampa was their word for something. I don't know what it was. Probably haunty place, Hasayampa.